Hey, what's up, y'all? Today I'm going to talk about the current state of software engineering as a career as of October 2023. One thing that I wanted to talk about here is, and I've been waiting to actually make this video for quite some time, is because I've been working with both a new grad along with somebody that has 2 to 3 years of experience removed from a boot camp. They both recently went through the job process in the last 6 months, as in they've been applying for the last 6 months, that kind of thing, and they both landed jobs within the last month or two or that kind of thing. So I have some pretty updated kind of data, of course, opinions of our own on how the job market is between them two. They didn't really do any reach out, that kind of stuff, just mass applies on LinkedIn. I think they both combined probably hit around five, maybe 6,000 job applications between the two folks. So they were really hustling to get jobs. And one thing that I'm going to compare this experience on from them two and from what I see is, of course, looping in my own experience, but along with an article and a report that's from hired.com that was released in February, late February, early March, about the annual report of the state of software engineering at that time. And so I think a lot has changed since March in this year, in the last time period here, in the last let's see, 7 months here. I think we got some good insight here, and I hope this helps. I'm actually reading a summary of it. There's two topics that I'm going to focus on specifically, and right, I'm going to focus specifically on entry level jobs. I'm going to specifically focus on tech industry, the layoffs and unemployment rates, aka is software engineering still in demand? And of course, I'm going to focus on how in demand junior engineers are, entry level jobs are. So first of all, I want to start with the tech industry unemployment rate. So the unemployment rate at the time, March 2023, was 1.5%, which is extremely high, right? That means that software engineering is still highly in demand. Most folks are still have a software job that are in software. It also states that most of the tech workers were quickly resorted back into the market, and most of the layoffs were from non-tech roles. So what does this mean, right? As this article states, that software engineering is still a great choice for long-term profession. As the unemployment rate for this profession is still extremely low. What it also mentions is that despite tech layoffs, right, the demand is still really high for healthcare, manufacturing, hospitality, for example. So how I interpret this is that yes, there was big tech layoffs. They might have made the news, but the market itself for the other career professions are still incredibly high. Okay, so now relating this back to our recent experience with folks that have been applying for jobs, right? That's essentially kind of what we see. Personally, from what we know from our friend group and just being in the software engineering community, we didn't see too many software engineers that were laid off. And if they were, unfortunately, they were entry level folks. Most of the big tech companies are looking to have mission critical folks. So unfortunately, a lot of HR, marketing, those kind of professions were the first to get hit. And most of the tech software layoffs we saw, if you were a software engineer that you got laid off, chances was that your 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 product was related to the non revenue generating products, that kind of thing. And so for example, one thing that we saw is that, if you're working at Google search, you probably didn't get laid off, but if you worked at Google marketing as a software engineer, there was probably a chance that you would have gotten let go, that kind of thing. We saw that from that job application process. That's exactly what we saw as well. A lot of the big time offers, those 250K, 300K entry level offers, stock high salaries were a much rare. Not that they didn't exist. They actually, both of them did land a tier one offer, which is exactly that. They did land them, but both the big tech companies that were offering those jobs all those positions were like mission critical products that they were trying to push to meet profitability. And they weren't like, low generating revenue products, that kind of stuff. And I think across the board, that's kind of the case is like, you look at a company that's did layoffs, they are kind of picking up hiring again. They are looking for, and if they are looking for software engineers, of course, mainly higher level ones. But if they are looking for folks with littler experience, they're still going to be on mission critical teams that are trying to that are going to be profit generating, that kind of thing. However, outside of that, what we noticed is that across the board, healthcare, especially healthcare, manufacturing, some of the other professions, even retail, they are still hiring as they were before. Maybe a little bit of a slowdown, but not quite too much. So the opportunities to find a job in those careers are still very much possible, still are a great place to start. And along with that, at the tail end of both of their job searches, along with even myself, we started noticing that reach out was starting to happen again, aka cold calls, startups, that kind of stuff. We're starting to reach back out through LinkedIn and opening up their job recs. And so that's always a good sign. For example, in the late 2022 was the first time I ever saw personally that cold reach out, recruiting emails completely stopped for myself, which, 2 years ago, I'd get 100 of them in like 3 months period or something like that. But slowly, we're starting to see things pick back up. Even myself in the last 3 months, big tech has reached out to me. Recently, had Google reach out to me and looking for positions. So there are good signs that things are picking back up, even in big tech, for rehiring for positions that are critical to the company. And then we do think there's still a lot of great opportunities in healthcare, that kind of stuff. However, that does not account for it being just more competitive in the market, right? And that's the next aspect that I want to talk about here is the demand for junior devs, according to this article, has dropped by half. So in the beginning of 2022, beginning of 22, that's like when everybody was just hiring like crazy, right? And so in the beginning of 2022, it was 15% of job openings were 0 to 4 years experience. However, that's dropped to 8% in 2023. So 7 more months have gone by. In our opinion, that has more or less remained the same. We think maybe that's dropped to maybe it's probably maybe 6% now at this point. However, definitely means that the competition to find your first job is continuing to get ever more difficult, right? One aspect that we want to add to this is that yes, it was very difficult for them both. They had a hard time finding, and even just from the eyeball test, had a hard time looking for junior level dev jobs. But one thing from our personal note that we noticed is that again, leveling is not extremely correlating through industry to industry. And what we mean by this is that even though this article reports that junior level dev jobs have dramatically decreased, we still personally think that junior level jobs at a big tech firm is more of like a mid level job at a healthcare facility or retail, that kind of thing. And so, one of the tricks that they personally used, and since they had a strategy going into this, is that they both went with the aspect of not worrying too much about what the job posting or the leveling of the posting and just applying for jobs that they think they can do. And that's essentially kind of both of them. That's kind of what happened, is that they both landed jobs because they were applying for positions that weren't necessarily stated as junior level, and when they landed at their company they just naturally got leveled out once they got through. But on top of that, they did get multiple offers. A lot of their other offers, they were in non-tech fields, non big tech companies. They were in government, that kind of stuff, banking. Those jobs did tend to rank a little bit higher in that leveling, and those job postings did seem to state a competitive mid-level higher leveling, that kind of thing. So the key takeaway from all the jobs that they applied to, and still from what I see, is that yes, the stated junior level dev jobs, entry level jobs, are probably a lot slimmer now. But if you look at the market holistically, I think there's still opportunities to land. An example I like to use is like you land in retail and you work a mid level job. And then 2 years down the line, when you're looking for a new job, you come back to tech, you come back to Google, they'll level you down naturally, anyways. So there is still a lot of opportunities if you're applying for jobs. And that's kind of how I would look at the market now if I was applying in this instance, for example. One thing I want to take here is that they did both notice uh, a and this was definitely one of the harder markets that they've both interviewed and competed for to get a job. This is probably one of the hardest times in a really, really long time to get a job. But however, the outlook, in my opinion, has actually gotten slightly better in some ways, in the sense that big tech has opened up some of their positions for jobs, especially when and of course, I want to say that I'm focusing specifically on the entry level jobs here. At the senior level or above, at the level where you can come in and make a direct impact, those there's still quite a bit of openings at that time, especially the big tech openings have definitely opened back up. So the long term outlook of software engineering, in my opinion, is still extremely strong. But having said that, the getting in, breaking in is getting incredibly more difficult. One aspect that we both want to talk about too is that there are two things here, right? Is that with the increased difficulty, we personally think that there's the route of like boot camping, doing a boot camp, or is kind of slimming down a little bit. People know it's more difficult to land a job after boot camp, so I think that demand of is slightly lower. So there are certain realms in our opinion, and in my opinion, that are slimming down. The competition is slimming down in some spaces, and then of course, like if you're looking for secondary, if you're looking for that big payday, 200K plus, 300K plus, 250 for your first job, I think that that is going to be ever increasingly more difficult. Although before, right, that is was already a very, very incredibly difficult thing to do, coming out and getting your first job. But I want to state that the good thing about that is that senior level hiring, right, or experience level hiring is still active, and the opportunities are still there to make your second job one of those tier one paid companies. So, last thing I want to add, just a couple filler notes here that we've noticed that I think could be helpful, is that return to office is a clear thing now. A lot of places are return to office or hybrid. By the day, it's slimming down, in our opinions. We think that it's going to be hard to predict how the market's going to happen next, right? A lot of the big tech companies are playing their stock right now with trying to meet profitability. In my opinion, when they do meet those metrics, there will be more entry level jobs that will open up, as they will be able to invest more in products that they don't need someone that can make a direct impact to right away to make it happen. Like projects that are up and coming, that kind of stuff. Those spots will open up once they hit that point. And I know a lot of the big tech companies are doing a lot to try to get to that point. And now it's been about a year or so since that those initial phases has motions have started from those large major layoffs. I think that increasing time period that they'll get to profitability is closer than it ever has been. And I personally think maybe in the next couple quarters, we'll start seeing some companies announcing that they've, hit profitability for the first time in the history of the company, or, that kind of thing. And so that's kind of just our take, right? Just to sum this up. Yes, both the folks I know were successful, but they hustled very, very hard to get their jobs. I'm talking probably several thousand applies each person, and also taking the risk of not just applying for junior level dev jobs and opening up their job search to just, if they see a ad marketing company, they have a mid level job, they're going to apply for it, that kind of thing. I don't think it's impossible. I think it's still possible to get a job. It'll be very difficult. And after this, right, another aspect I want to add to this is that there's still the skills of getting applying for jobs, getting through the portal, just the job of interviewing is a skill on its own. That skill doesn't go away when the job market picks back up. It's still extremely important to go through those motions in today's time period. Get your reps in, get those failed rejections in, because when the time comes, if things do pick back up, which our projections is that it will, because the unemployment rate and also demand for senior engineers is so high, right? Eventually, those other recs are going to open back up. You got to be ready for those moments, right? These rejections that you take, that you if you don't take a rejection during this period, right, you're just gonna have to take those rejections later on. It's just gonna be you're just delaying the learning process of applying for jobs. So none of those skills for us personally has changed. They have become more challenging, and I would challenge anybody out there to continue to keep on pushing. I think it is possible. It is not. It's not easy, but just know that it's possible. It is definitely possible. It's not easy. It's gonna be a lot of work, but I think the outcome, the long-term vision of what this is still a great space to be in. So I hope that helps. Let me know. I think that I still have a lot of aspects that I can talk about in terms of working with folks that recently went through the job market, right? A lot of things that I probably missed as well. If you have anything you want me to talk about, I'd gladly do so. If not, I'll talk to you on the next one. Later.